Hey, everybody. Welcome into the Flagship Podcast. I am Chip Brown of Horns247.com, joined as always by my esteemed colleague and proud Tampa Catholic graduate, the one and only Eric Henry of Horns247.com. It is July. We are in the month of July 2nd. So happy early 4th of July. Happy birthday, America. Hope everyone has a chance to celebrate this great nation's birthday this week and, have some fun in the sun. Eric, we've got a lot to get into today. Football season never ends here at horns247.com. You have been doing an excellent job of keeping football season alive with some, excellent content, position group, confidence rankings, a look at Jelani McDonald. Texas has some preseason All-Americans and scouting Oklahoma. We will get into all of that. And we'll, of course, also have some updates on Texas baseball and everybody's favorite, take it or leave it. Eric, how are you doing, my man?
Chip Brown, what is going on? Happy Wednesday, which just to let y'all know, I know we've taped over the past year or so between Wednesday and Thursday. Hopefully that police siren or fire engine is not coming up in the background. But we've taped typically either on Wednesday or Thursday. This is going to be our day. We're going to come back to Wednesdays. We'll have the State of Recruiting podcast that will come back in the future, so you know when to look for us. But Chip, I cannot complain. It's another beautiful day here in the Sunshine State. Unfortunately, you talked about the 4th of July, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, Chip, CB, what your favorite go-to 4th of July activities are. I feel like the least you could do is address that ahead of time. But we're expecting some weather here in the Sunshine State, so hopefully it stays away. So the 4th of July festivities are not rained out. And for my sake, I don't have to do anything else in this house that I own here.
Leave Eric's house alone.
It was a rough stretch during football season last year when the hurricanes came through. But Chip, I will kick us off before we dive into all things Texas. For me, I got a couple musts for 4th of July. All right. Of course, you got to grill. Got to grill burgers and dogs, wings, ideally. I'm a wing guy, so we're going to do some burgers, dogs, wings. Growing up in Florida, usually there was a trip to the beach at some point, whether that was evening for the sunset or morning, got to get out there on the water at some point in time before you have everyone over to the house. And then Chip, I was showing you my backyard before we started taping. Lawn games are a big thing for me. I don't know if we'll get them in this year because like I said, weather is coming, but I got 3 things that if I may say myself, because my friends aren't here to dispute this, I'm the best at. We go cornhole. We go darts. Do a big dart guy, Chip, electronic darts. And last but not least, I don't know what you guys may call in Texas, or it's called in Texas. I should say you guys, because I live and work in Texas. But we kind of do this thing called yard pong, Chip. Everyone's familiar with the old game beer pong, but in yard pong, you grab like some big, like 55-gallon circular trash bins, plastic trash bins. You grab like a volleyball or something and you shoot, right? And, so you can stand up and do it, and you're not, you don't have to indulge in a beverage after each time you make one. But, it's a fun game. You can do it in teams. You can do it in pairs, couples, whatever. So those are the 3 things for me. So knock on wood. Today would be a great day for it, but I don't know if it's going to hold up in 2 more days. But Chip Brown, the Brown household, 4th of July, what you got?
Very similar to yours. Grill some steaks. Get to the water, whether it's Barton Springs pool or someone's pool or the lake, and try to get in a spot to catch some fireworks. It still makes you think of Francis Scott Key writing the Star Spangled Banner to fireworks, if that's what was really happening, or rockets, if there was a different rockets red glaring. But yeah, very, very similar. You and I, by the way, need to get to the bar and play some darts, because that's
okay. Let's go.
That was a college favorite pastime of mine as well.
There we go.
So
little Horns 24/7 dart outing with the do that, make that happen.
Yeah, ping pong. Love those games. Eric, we are 11 days from SEC Media Days and little under 60 days to the season opener for Texas Longhorns football at Ohio State on August 30th. We know game day will be there, and we are doing a lot of sizing up of the Longhorns heading into this upcoming 2025 season. And you put together some confidence rankings, of the Texas football, each of the positions. And let's get into it. We'll kind of work backwards because your top confidence would be number 1.
Correct.
Your least confidence would be number 10. And at number 10, you had the offensive line. So let's get into it.
Yeah. And for the record, 2 things. 1, this is not confidence level as in if you're 10th, I think it's going to be horrible. It's confidence level in juxtaposition in relation to the rest of the team, right? So there's that. And also, Chip does his yearly. So feel free, compare, mix and match, leave feedback, which ones you like, which ones you don't like, so we will do that as well. I'm going to do this now. I've done one now. I'll do one midway through camp and then right before the season opener. But Chip said offensive line at number 10. Full disclosure, I could have done the groups I had 7 through 10 in any really order there with 10 through 7, right? I went
close.
In my opinion, they're all close. I went with offensive line purely because I have number 9 at receiver. I think you have a little bit more established. Yeah, I think they're a little bit more established at receiver. I think Ryan Wingo showed enough. Anyone who's read my coverage of Ryan Wingo over the offseason, I, projected the numbers, not projected, but showed, hey, if Ryan Wingo had as many targets as Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith, he'd be right there with those guys. Maybe not the exact same numbers, but he'd be talked about more in that realm. So that should let you know what I think about Ryan Wingo. I think DeAndre Moore is vastly underrated. I think Demo is due for a breakout season. It's similarly to a way he had kind of a breakout season last year, but I think he'll round out some of the drops and others, so that and Emmett Mosley. I have a lot of confidence in the receiver room. Offensive line, it's not that I don't have confidence, but Chip, continuity matters, okay? You can't microwave continuity. If you've heard me on this podcast, you've seen things I've written, I'm not comparing Texas's offensive line to Oklahoma from last year where they tried to portal an offensive line. But I still think you're bringing in 4 new guys who, yes, they've been part of the same room, but they're going to have to learn how to communicate together. You do have a Cole Hudson who at least has started. He is more or less kind of primed to take over that center role, right? At least that's a job, Chip, that, as you know, many of our audience knows, that's a communication role more than anything else. Yes, you got to be a great center. You got to block, but that is a communication role. That is a being in sync role with your quarterback, right? So that certainly matters as well. DJ Campbell should lead the way, but I just kind of want to see how that comes together, right? I'll go through 9 through 7 real quick, just we can kind of, blitz through that. You heard my thoughts on receiver. Go to defensive tackle. Chip, we talked about the defensive tackle haul. A lot of names. But when you take a look at starter level snaps, Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, both north of 470 snaps last year, that would be considered starter level snaps when you go back, at least in my 2 years covering the team. Byron Murphy, Devondre Sweat, also north of 475. You only have one guy, Murad Watson, of that group who has played north of 475 in his career, right? Even though you're thinking, and not thinking, but you're expecting big things from Cole Brevard and, Travis Shaw and Levon Johnson, Hero Kanu, Alex January. You haven't seen it yet, right? So that's why defensive tackle is there. It's not that they don't have the talent, but you're trying to project this for starter level production. And then at number 7, I had tight end again. And maybe I'll just lump quarterback in real quick, kind of get the elephant out of the room, which I had at 6. Tight end, Jack Endries, I think he's going to be an all-SEC player. you have unproven talents behind him. It's the same thing with quarterback. There was a comment, Chip, and I'll pause after 6 so you can jump back in. There was a comment that's left saying, Eric, appreciate the article. You're going to, feel real stupid. And I'm paraphrasing here. It wasn't meant in a mean way, but like, you're going to feel stupid when you see, having quarterback at 6 when Arch is competing for the Heisman. I believe Arch Manning will have a great year. And of course, by virtue of being on a good Texas team as the quarterback, he will be in the Heisman discussion. This is position as a whole, okay? You have inexperience / no experience with KJ Lacey and Trey Owens behind him. And you have Matthew Caldwell, who, again, I like Matt Caldwell, what he did at Troy with Gerard Parker last year. That was not a particularly good Troy team, which was expected with John Summerall taking the Tulane job. But he was a middle-of-the-pack starter in the Sun Belt. And quite frankly, if you followed Sun Belt football last year, there weren't a ton of great Sun Belt quarterbacks, right? That's a league one of the G5 leagues that tends to put out some guys. It wasn't a great year last year for the Fun Belt, all right? So it's not that Steve Sarkisian might not see something in him, but if you're just asking me right now, as the group and room as a whole with a first-time starter, it's at 6. Let me skip through a few fall practices. Maybe it rises to high as 4 or 3. Chip Brown, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think because of the uncertainty, you have to see it on the offensive line. It's a coordinated effort of 5 guys. The communication, we're going to see right away against Ohio State with a new defensive coordinator in Matt Patricia. So it could be, they'll look at what Matt Patricia has run in the past, but it could be a total surprise as to what Ohio State is running defensively. That will be a challenge for this Texas offensive line. There's talent, I think. Trevor Gooseby is a guy who could be one and done as a starter if he has the kind of year he's hoping to have. And Neto Umezulu at left guard has been in the program for 4 years. He's waited his turn. We expect him to be solid at the very least because of all the time and practice and work he's put in with Kyle Flood. Cole Hudson started every game as a freshman at guard. Now he's at center. Are his snaps as good as Jake Majors? I always said to Jake Majors, I'm like, Jake, I don't think you get enough credit for your snaps. Your snaps are always right, on the quarterback's hip where he wants to take the ball back to throw it. He wasn't rolling balls back there like, Seth McLaughlin at Alabama a couple years ago. And then DJ Campbell, now the veteran, and there were some struggles on the right side of the line last year between, communication wise between DJ Campbell and Cam Williams. And so I think, when people see 10, they think, but when you're talking about a team that's ranked so high, the proximity of the positions, like you said, of 7 through 10, they're all almost equal. So I get that. I might have defensive tackle, right there at 10 or 9 because of what you said. It's going to be, Alex January is the lone returning defensive tackle and he had less than 100 snaps last year. They like him. They like where he's headed, and he could be in the starting rotation or, he'll definitely be in the starting rotation. He could be in the starting lineup, but, you're probably looking at Cole Brevard and Murad Watson as the guys who've put in the most work on the field. They have proven production. Brevard's, hard to move. Murad Watson can move. So you get the kind of 1 technique, 3 technique there, the combo there, but we have to see it. So I get that. I might have receiver a little higher because I'm waiting. I love what Texas has talent wise, and we'll get into this in a second at corner, but is Jalen Gilbo staying out there? Is he comfortable enough? Is Malik Muhammad, did he take a step this summer? Kobe Black, you got Warren Roberson was getting rave reviews. I just want to see what that combination looks like and who's out there getting it done. And I might have tight end a little higher, but I get where you're coming from with the lack of experience behind Jack Endries. Jack Endries could be all conference, but Texas has Spencer Shannon and Jordan Washington, two guys who've been, working behind the scenes, but haven't been on the field much. So, and some excitement about Amari Winston, who really impressed in the spring. Tough guy, good hands, true H back, but has good contact balance, can make some plays after the catch. I think they're going to find a way to work him in somehow, some way. So, I like it. And I think, I'll turn it back over to you with your 6 on up to, you had quarterback at 6. Yeah. And I get that too, because we think Arch is going to be really, really good. He could be national championship good. But if something happens to Arch Manning, where are they? Is Trey Owens? I think Trey Owens is ready. Yeah. But we got to see it.
Agreed. And again, we have the world's greatest unpaid producer, Chris Bennett. What is going on? Appreciate you watching as always. He could run down the list of years that Texas is now played.
Give us that list, CB.
One quarterback, right? So that's part of why I have QB at 6. But to run through the rest, and Chip, this is kind of my overarching thing, especially when you go 4 through 1. Again, the reason I want to specify the rankings are not, oh no, it is panic. It's juxtaposed to the rest of the team. I don't know, and maybe it's just me. That's why I said I'm curious how Chip feels. How much, I don't want to say how much better, but how good, Chip. You go edge. You go linebacker. I mean, safety. I would go linebacker, edge, safety, not just top 3, on team. I'd go tops, arguably in the SEC, tops, arguably in the nation when you talk about those groups, right? So that's why to go 5 through 1 here, I had running back at 5, at cornerback at 5, with the question there as Chip talked about, Manny Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo, where does he go? Kobe Black, Warren Robeson, Wardell Mack, how do those guys develop, right? But just with, Manny Muhammad, Jalen Gilbo, you have to feel pretty confident there. And then Kobe Black, Chip, who had a nice game at Vandy, right? Stepped in some high leverage situations there. So you got to feel confident there. Running back, everything, I know Chip's hearing stuff, everything we're kind of hearing coming out is CJ Baxter. He's still coming off a major knee injury. You got to take that into consideration, but they're not asking him to be the guy. So for what CJ may be asked to do, he seems to be hitting the ground running. No pun intended there. So that is going well. CB, I'm going to pull up that list. Appreciate you sending it. Pull up that list in a second. And then the top 3, again, when you look at number 3 right here, I've got edge. The only reason I didn't put edge above safety, because I think Colin Simmons is going to wreck college football this year. I honestly think he is. We'll see what happens, whether it's Trey Moore, kind of in a hybrid edge / outside linebacker role, Ethan Burke. We'll see what happens. But I think whoever lines up opposite of Colin Simmons should have a darn good year in their own right, because they're going to have opportunities as well. You go safety. Michael Taft doesn't get enough love, can't get enough love. We'll see whether Jelani McDonald is a safety or a star or whoever it may be. But you got JJR. You got Xavier Filsaime. I think that group's in great position there. And then as I'm Derek Williams. Also forgot about Derek Williams, right? That's another factor as well. Someone who had an excellent freshman year in his own right for getting banged up in season-ending injury against Oklahoma.
Derek and Jonah Williams.
And Jonah Williams. And who I mentioned there as well, right? So clearly that's why, you have that safety spot where it is. Linebacker, simply put, I've said it before, in a 2 linebacker-based defense, there aren't 2 linebackers in the nation I would take over Anthony Hill and Leon Galafau. So that's where 5 through 1 comes in. Chip, I pass it back to you quickly. Toss up this list. Again, for anyone who's wondering why quarterback at 6, Texas has used or needed multiple quarterbacks all those years. I can't speak to the years prior to 2021 because those are the years I can actively remember. But Chip can speak to the years prior to 2021. I don't know how many of those were injury related or performance related. If we're just talking injury related, right? Because we're assuming with Arch, it's not going to be performance related. 21 through 2024 were all injury related, right? So that's why QB2 matters. All you.
Yeah, by the way, that list, 20 years of since 2000, since the turn of the century, we're in we've played through the 2024 season. 20 of the first 24 years of this century, Texas has needed a backup quarterback at some point during the season. So that's a lot. No question about it. Yeah, I'm with you. I have linebacker 1 and I think edge 2 because the talent, Anthony Hill Jr. was the best linebacker in the country last year. I don't know how he was not a finalist for the Butkus Award. I still don't get it at all. I mean, 16 and a half tackles for loss, 8 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, an interception, and over 100 plus tackles. And the guy is just an absolute menace in the middle of the defense, and can do it all. He takes on blocks, he slips blocks, he can rush, he can drop into coverage now. I mean, his game expanded so much last year from just a guy who, put his hand on the ground or tell him go, see ball, hit ball. And so I'm expecting an even bigger jump from him this year. And you add Brad Spence, you have Leon Galifau, Trey Moore's working as a hybrid. I'm hoping Elijah Bo Barnes and John Cunningham are taking, good notes, because they may not like where they are with the playing time in 2025, but Anthony Hill ain't going to be here next year. So take good notes and be ready to roll. And then at the edge position, I'm with you, Eric. I just don't think we've seen a ball get off like Colin Simmons since I don't know when, maybe never at Texas, but the guy is so instinctive, so talented. I'm with you. I expect him, to be dominant. And here's the thing. I was talking to Dan Neal about this, the former All-American offensive lineman. And he said, if Texas can stop the run, it's over, because Colin Simmons, Ethan Burke, Trey Moore, they're going to get to the quarterback. And that's where this defense could be really, really special this year. Now, all of it has to fit together. And you mentioned safety, and I won't put words in your mouth, Eric, but the communication last year between Michael Taft, Jade Barron, Andrew Makuba was elite. It was super special because those three go back, to when they trained together in high school. Makuba and Barron tried to help Michael Taft get a scholarship. When they would turn down a scholarship from a school, they'd say, you should think about Michael Taft. And for them all to play together last year and for that Texas pass defense to, be the best in the nation for much of the year, that's going to be hard to replicate no matter how much talent is back there, whether it's Jelani McDonald, who could be safety, he could be star. I expect him to probably be at the star position against Ohio State. But you've got, Michael Taft, you've got Jonah Williams. It's amazing. You mentioned, Jordan Johnson-Rebel, who Blake Gideon told me is the hardest hitter. I'm like, it's not Jelani? He's like, no, it's Jordan Johnson-Rebel. So there's that's going to be such a fun position to watch. And having Michael Taft's leadership back there is going to be enormous for both the corners and the safeties. And we know Taft is he's not shy about communicating. Sometimes you're like who's directing traffic back there? You don't have to wonder with Michael Taft. So, yeah, it's a fun look. What would you say?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just was going to say, before you transition, I know you're asking me a question. Just you said you were talking about Colin Simmons and talking about edge rushers in a long time. You let me know if this is fair or foul. I'm just thinking in my lifetime, the edge rushers who stand out the most that I can remember, Terrell Suggs, Julius Peppers, Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know if there's someone like blatantly that I'm missing, but do you think it's fair? Because I think it's fair to expect that.
Yeah. I mean, Derek Thomas, that's elite Hall of Fame type stuff, but I think Colin Simmons sees himself as a future Hall of Famer. I mean, he wants to be great. He knows he's got gifts. And so this is going to be a really big year because I think you make a lot of progress between your freshman and sophomore years. You now know how to prepare for a season. You know how to watch film. You know how to evaluate the guy across from you. And that's going to be big. And I think having a guy like Ethan Burke, Baron Sorrell had a really good year last year. Ethan Burke is a guy who could make sure there's no drop off with his length, the 83-inch wingspan, kind of a Max Crosby starter kit. And a guy who played lacrosse really, most of his life and then transitioned to football after turning down a scholarship for lacrosse to Maryland. So I think this is going to has a chance to be a really, really special defense. And I think it's a defense that will probably have to help carry the load while this offense gets all of its timing down. And it could be a tough day on August 30th for the Texas offense, depending on if Matt Patricia's got some cooked up that's causing them problems. I know Ohio State lost a lot on its defensive line. They still have Caleb Downs. That guy's an eraser. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm so glad we have that game to talk about, Eric, instead of Texas opening the season with Rice or,
no disrespect to the Owls, Rice or
UTEP or San Jose State. Although, I got to be careful because Sam Houston won 10 games last year. So
it's a much different Sam Houston team, but
new coach, all kinds of stuff. Okay, good stuff. And Jelani McDonald, you wrote about Jelani McDonald this week. Everyone needs to get over to Horns247.com to we're pumping out all kinds of in-depth looks at players, position groups. It's been really good content. And Eric, you and I might be fighting for the president of the Jelani McDonald fan club. I've had my eyes on him since Gary Patterson was here and said, hey, watch out for Jelani McDonald because that guy gets it. And Gary coached his dad, LaMarcus, who was an all-conference linebacker at TCU. And Jelani's got it. I mean, that dude is instinctive. He's a playmaker. And so tell the folks what you see for Jelani McDonald heading into 2025.
Yeah, real quick, like Chip said, a lot of in-depth stuff. Chip is actually going to work on his piece. A little spoiler here. Chip doesn't mind. Top of Texas to-do list, developing an identity in the short yardage and goal line. He's going to do that. I'll take a look at the statistical analysis, which I'm going to try and do something. One of my first pieces I did for the site was a look at Texas's success rate in short yardage and goal line. What they call power success rate is the advanced statistic. I'm going to try to track it all the way through Steve's first year because at least through 22, it's been an issue. So keep an eye out for those things. Yeah. This expanded production series, I'm going to do Jelani McDonald. I'm going to do Arch Manning, trying to find one more Texas, someone who a Texas player who hasn't played a ton of snaps, who's going to step into a larger role. So we'll see how that comes together. This is just projecting Jelani McDonald overall at a position. It's not saying, to be clear, that he's going to play safety, right? I'm just using safety level snaps as a barometer for what he could look like. So I know some people counted, he's probably going to be at star. I'm just using the safety level just, for a framework for this piece, just so anyone knows. You talked about it, right? A player who, even if JJR is the hardest hitter on the team, excuse me, sorry about that. Thank you. Jelani McDonald brings a physical presence back there, Chip. Remember, there was a level of physicality that we thought Jalen Catalon was going to run a couple of years back. And forgive me for writing off Jalen Catalon. I thought he was done. He went out there to UNLV, played for Barry Odom, restarted his career, and he is now at, he's back in the SEC, Mizzou, I believe. So keep an eye out there. But my point is, Jelani McDonald brings a very physical presence, very dynamic presence. And the easy thing to do, Chip, would have been like, all right, Jelani McDonald played X amount of snaps. I think his snap count was something like 300 and something. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And just try and say, all right, what would Andrew Makuba, for example, how many snaps did he play? Try and, project the numbers there. But I felt like you're talking about a talent who was really dynamic. Texas fans should remember safety play. Jaron Thompson from 2021 to 2022 took a huge leap in terms of his play. His 2023, as we know, wasn't quite as 2022, but you've seen that history of progression. Of course, that was Blake Gideon, but in PK's defense. You've seen it with Michael Taft, right? He's taken a leap in production. So at least just using the safety snaps as a framework, there is room to project that a guy like Jelani McDonald might not just be, we've seen Derek Williams hit the ground running as a true freshman. Might not just be a guy who, all right, comes in and makes 40 tackles. No, he could be a Andrew Makuba-like 65 tackles, 70 tackle guy, 5 tackles for loss, a couple of interceptions, be a physical presence, a guy who plays downhill. So those are all things that I was comfortable projecting, even if Jelani plays in the star. Now, if he plays in the star, right, maybe those tackles for loss go up a little bit more. He's playing closer to the line of scrimmage, right? So those are obviously opportunities there, opportunities for sacks, forced fumbles, things of that nature. Even his tackle rate could go up because he's playing closer to the line of scrimmage. This Texas defense, in my opinion, is not going to have too many plays that end up at the third level of the defense, right? So maybe the tackle numbers there shift. But check it out. Let me know what you think. It's a really fun piece to dive into as far as kind of projecting what Jelani McDonald could do in starter level snaps, whether that is at safety or at star, just in the defense and secondary as a whole, given his talent.
Yeah. Jelani McDonald, he played corner at Waco Connolly and was, a shutdown guy. So I'm so excited to see how they use him, where they use him. He can do it all. Super versatile. We talk about position flexibility. Jelani McDonald is that. He's a dime linebacker. I mean, that's the kind of physical presence he brings to the field. So no wonder Gary Patterson loves him, because those are the kind of guys that Gary Patterson recruited, who could play 3 different positions and can run like the wind. So, and again, you look at, the safety room, Derek Williams and Michael Taft and Jordan Johnson-Rubel, Jonah Williams. And you look at Jalen Gilbo. I mean, Jalen Gilbo's kind of the swing guy here. If he holds up outside and stays out at outside corner, then I do think you see Jelani McDonald in the star nickel. They also love Wardell Mack and Grayson Littleton in those positions. So they feel like there's depth. No matter how you slice it, they feel like they are 2 and 3 deep at outside corner, star, safety, and that's a lot. That's a huge benefit, because if you have injuries, you have guys who can step in. Warren Roberson, this is a guy who I always say he reminds me of Cedric Griffin. Swag for days. Can't wait to get on the field and make plays. More Miami Hurricane probably than he is Texas Longhorn. Needs to not hold on kick returns, but that's another guy I'm excited to see, because I think he's going to be in the rotation. And Dwayne Aquina, the one thing we know about Dwayne Aquina, and of course he's got to coordinate with Mark Orfe, who's the cornerbacks coach. Akina's philosophy is if you've earned it in practice, you are going to play. And even when he had Cedric Griffin, who was an NFL player, Aaron Ross, he worked in Terrell Brown and, Michael Griffin and Michael Huff. It didn't matter. These guys were all future NFL talents. But in Akina's mind, if you've shown me you can hold up and you have earned it in practice, you're going to play. Even if it means putting a future NFL player, taking him out for a series. So very interested to see how they, disperse those snaps across the secondary. Eric, for our roundtable, we talked about the Texas-Ohio State game. We will talk about that in Take It or Leave It.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. We will give you some early gut instincts that we might have about that game. And I'll say this before we get to your scout of Oklahoma,
Sure.
which we also have 3 preseason All-Americans. You want to tell the folks who the Walter Camp preseason All-Americans are, and then we'll get into Oklahoma.
Well deserved. For the second straight year, Anthony Hill Jr. makes the list. He makes the first team. Colin Simmons makes the first team as well for Walter Camp. And Michael Taft getting his preseason love, which again is well deserved. So those are the 3 preseason All-Americans, Walter Camp, Chip.
Yeah, and that's a great honor because they fly you out to the Northeast and have you out for a big weekend. So if you can reel in that honor, that's a nice one.
And Chip, before you move on, just this dropped Texas, on their Twitter account, Athlon Sports All-Americans. We got Manny Muhammad. I'm literally reading this off the graphic, so forgive me because I'm squinting here. We got Anthony Hill, first team. We got Arch Manning, first team, 2025 Athlon Sports All-American, Chip. Colin Simmons, first team. Michael Taft, second team. Jack Endry, second team. Manny Muhammad, third team. Trayvon Wisner, fourth team. So there you go.
Okay. There's a lot to be excited about. And at the running back position, CJ Baxter and Christian Clark are both running. They're both going full go in summer workouts. So we'll see how much the coaches want to throw them into contact once fall camp begins, but they're running. They're full go as far as summer workouts, and that's great news because CJ Baxter, we've been waiting to see what he can do. How much did he learn while watching last year with his torn ACL and LCL in his right knee, and Christian Clark with the Achilles injury back? Arch Manning mentioned him at the Manning Passing Academy as a guy who's looking good. And remember, Tashard Choice, the former running backs coach, told me that he compares Christian Clark to Bijan Robinson in terms of his ability to make jump cuts and spin and just be elusive in it, wiggle in addition to having speed and good hands and that kind of thing. And so when you hear that, you're like, okay, let me see what Christian Clark has for everybody. And the guy I would say keep an eye on is James Simon, because I was told he's Jarek Gibson with better hands. Okay. Like really good hands. So they were running some deep routes for him in the spring. So we'll see how that goes. All right, Eric, Oklahoma. You've got a series going, scouting each of Texas's upcoming opponents this week. Oklahoma. What do you think?
Yeah, Chip. I mean, for me, it's really interesting. Sorry, I'm finding a frog in my throat. Apologies for all the people who are going to hear this and have to deal with my coughs and sneezes. I apologize. First off, shout out to Tom Green, Sooners Illustrated. Tom does a great job over there, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Basically, what I'm doing this year with the early scouting report series, instead of kind of doing the dive into losses and additions and whatnot, just let's talk some boots on the ground. Maybe get a little more nuanced, in-depth look. Biggest loss. How do they address it in the spring? Question post-spring. But the thing that stood out to me the most, Chip, two things. One, Tom feels that the defensive line is the unit that that Oklahoma feel most confident about. His opinion, I'm reading here, the unit would be in the conversation for best defensive line in the SEC and likely the country. I am sure there are Texas fans who hear eyebrows raised when they hear that. Because listen, our Mason Thomas is a good player. I don't view him in the Colin Simmons realm. I don't even view him in the I shouldn't say I don't view him in the Ethan Burke realm, because our Mason Thomas has had higher sack production than Ethan Burke over his career. But I view him more in that realm than a Colin Simmons, for example. But he is very high on the defensive line there. Also, you get a guy like Marvin Jones Jr., transfer from Florida State. So that's a big one. But here's the one, Chip, that I thought you'd find most interesting. Ask Tom, hey, what's the temperature of Sooners fans entering 2025, specifically given the success Texas has had over the last 24 months, Chip? Tom says he thinks there's optimism that the offense can bounce back with Arbuckle and Mateer, that relationship. Ben Arbuckle, John Mateer, that working relationship. But he also says, make no mistake about it, this is a prove-it year for Brent Venables, who's had 2 losing seasons and 2 ugly losses to Texas in his first 3 years. Fans have appreciated Venables' handling of the program and how he rebuilt the culture towards the end of the Lincoln Riley era, but they also know that he needs to deliver on-field results in the SEC to keep him around. So, not going to spoil everything. Check it out. It's up on the site. But there's 2 quick little nuggets there to tide you over for a little bit, Chip. Give you a little teaser.
Yeah, and they're making the same move that Vanderbilt made, basically. Last year, Vanderbilt brought in New Mexico State's offensive coordinator, Tim Beck, and quarterback Diego Pavia, heck, even the head coach, Jerry Gill, as a consultant.
Eli Stowers, don't forget about him. Tight end, Eli Stowers, too.
Yeah. And Eli Stowers is a preseason all-SEC candidate. So you look at Oklahoma, they went and hired the offensive coordinator from Washington State, brought in John Mateer, dual threat guy. Mateer, I think people are like, okay, whatever. No, he's legit. Watch his film. Go to YouTube. Do yourself a favor. Mateer, he ran for double-digit touchdowns last year. I compare him to Sam Levitt. Now, I don't know if he's that fast, but he's elusive and keeps plays alive. He frustrates defenses. So here's my question, though, Eric.
Yes.
They're like, oh, we have 4 starters back on the offensive line. Is that a good thing? Like, Oklahoma's offense was terrible last year, and I get it. Their entire receiver core was injured, including Deion Burks, who's like the only guy still there. Nick Anderson's at LSU, and some of these other guys are all over the place. But Deion Burks, he was hurt, and they've got him back, and they've brought in a couple guys. But is that offensive line? Is that a good thing that they have 4 starters back? I guess we'll find out. But that offense was historically bad, and Jackson Arnold said, I'm out of here, obviously, with John Mateer coming in. And they're going to be reunited when Auburn plays Oklahoma, because Jackson Arnold's now the quarterback at Auburn. I agree that the Oklahoma defense, their defensive line, they've stacked some solid players in there, and they're too deep, and they're solid up front. And that's a good place to be solid for Brent Venables. But no Danny Stutzman, and they got some holes to fill in the back end of that defense. But if John Mateer can do for for Oklahoma's offense what Diego Pavia did for Vanderbilt, then Oklahoma's going to be a tough out. They're going to hang around. They're going to make some plays off schedule. They're going to convert some fourth downs. We saw Diego Pavia do that to Texas in the second half of that game in Nashville last year, Eric. So I'm intrigued by OU, and I don't know what the magic number is for Brent Venables. Is it 9 wins? I'm sure 9 wins. The fans are like, okay, we're headed back in the right direction. But is 7 wins enough? We'll see.
Chip, I think, and this is kind of a cop-out answer, but I think it depends on what the wins are, right? That always plays a factor. I'm sure if you beat Texas, that will certainly help your case. Really quick, because as Chip, I'm sure, and I've annoyed not only just Chip Brown and the Horns247 staff, but probably the entire Texas beat with everything coming back to the group of 5. Ben Arbuckle, Chip, was at Western Kentucky with Kenny Baker. Kenny Baker on the defensive side of the ball, defensive line coach. Ben Arbuckle first I remember Ben Arbuckle as a quality control guy because he was with Zach Kitley at HBCU, Zach Kitley and Bailey Zappi, lighting up the scoreboard there at Husky Stadium next to a CVS. And it literally is right next to a CVS. You can drive through and pick up your pharmacy order and possibly get hit by an errant pass going out of bounds. I digress. The greatest offense I've ever seen, Chip. I know Steve Sarkisian, 2020 Alabama, statistically the greatest offense. Greatest offense I've ever seen is 2021 Western Kentucky. They averaged 47 points per game. Ben Arbuckle was a part of that offense. I'm only saying all that is to say I'm not projecting that for OU. I'm just saying to give you a little bit of feel of what he kind of is as a play caller and their style. He also went to Washington State. They did some of the same things there. He worked under Zach Kitley. Of course, you remember Zach Kitley certainly played a role in all of this as well. Now, current FAU head coach. So I will again annoy the beat with all things coming back to group of 5 football. It's a good thing I spent 6 years covering those guys there because the ties always work their way up. But that should give you a feel on Ben Arbuckle and kind of what, vibe they may try to bring there with John Mateer.
No, that's a good nugget because anytime you have coaches from opposing sides of the ball who have, Kenny Baker's going to have a feel for what Ben Arbuckle likes to run. That is significant. All right. You ready for some take it or leave it, Eric?
I am ready, Chip.
Well, then let's do it.
This time you are serving first, my friend.
Okay. So since our last episode last week, we've had the NBA draft and Trey Johnson selected in the lottery by the Washington Wizards.
Yep. Number 7.
Is this a good landing spot for Trey Johnson? This is a good landing spot for Trey Johnson.
We wrote that on the fly. I apologize there. Before I answer, a quick cheap plug for my guy Tyson Helton. He's putting all these coaches in power positions. My guy Ty might need to get a job of his own. I digress. Take it or leave it. Your check's in the mail, Tyson. I think it's a great landing spot for Trey. Here's why. First off, the one spot I didn't want Trey to go to was Charlotte. Not that necessarily there was a need, but Chip, Trey Johnson, someone who loves basketball. It's very clear. He even said in his pre-draft interview, right, that he has no hobbies outside of listening to music, playing video games, and hooping, right? What I didn't think would be a good fit? Him next to LaMelo Ball, who has all of the hobbies in the world outside of basketball. And LaMelo Ball is an immensely talented basketball player, but he also has hobbies outside of basketball, right? You want to talk about heads clashing, I could see that being an issue. So, and that was the number 3 pick they drafted Con Knipple out of Duke is who they drafted. Washington, who are his vets? Because Chip, I don't know how you feel about this. I think especially with basketball, who are your vets? Who are the guys you're learning from? CJ McCollum's one of the most respected guys in basketball, right? I mean, a true pro. Chris Middleton. That alone right there gives you, 2 guys, established guys, played on winning teams. He's going to learn from those guys. Also, he doesn't have to walk in and be the first scoring option. CJ McCollum will likely be the number 1 scoring option there. That will allow Trey to round out other aspects of his game. So without, belaboring the point too long, I think it's not just a good landing spot, it's a great landing spot, Chip.
Yeah, and that I think people forget that because the Washington Wizards is where players go to die, or it has been in the past. But you just mentioned it. I mean, CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart, those are some veterans who've been through it, and they're gonna toughen Trey Johnson up. Let's put it that way. They're gonna take all of his natural ability and toughen it up. So, yeah, I think it's a good landing spot. Not sure how many games they're gonna win, but hey, maybe Trey comes in and he's part of the solution. Should be. All right, we agree. We'll both take that. Take it or leave it. Number 2, Eric, Texas football wins its season opener at Ohio State. Take it or leave it.
I think I was supposed to ask you that one.
Oh, how am I doing?
All good. Texas football wins its season opener at Ohio State. Chip Brown, take it or leave it.
You know what, Eric? I'm going to take this. Here's why. This is going to sound like a homer pick. But here's the thing. If you're going to play Ohio State with a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, a new defensive line, if you're going to have to play them in Columbus, you'd rather play them in week 1 than in week 6 when they've kind of got some stuff figured out. You want to catch them when they're still trying to figure it out, and you want to put some doubt in their mind. And Julian Sayin, talented 5-star, signed with Alabama, but then Nick Saban retired, so he shifted over to Ohio State. Everybody talking about this guy, and he's still got to win the job in fall camp. But if it is Julian Sayin making his first collegiate start against Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill, and Ethan Burke, and Michael Taft, I like Texas's chances in that situation. So I think Texas wins the season opener, Eric. I'm taking it. What say you?
I was the only member of the Horns247 staff to take Ohio State in our roundtable. As I said, I just need to see a little bit of fall camp. If I were making this pick on August 29th, maybe I'll flip it to Texas 21, Ohio State 19. The reason, and Chip alluded to it earlier in the show, we all know defense hits the ground running quicker than offense, typically coming out of camp. A lot of new faces, a lot of new pieces to get going for Texas and Chip historically, while Texas looked better against Colorado State last year. Remember, it took them a little bit to catch their stride, right? We all know the 2023 year, that Rice game, it wasn't, close by a stretch of the imagination, but the high mark was versus Alabama, and they came back. Wyoming pushed them, right? Offense takes a little bit of time to hit the ground running. So right now, on July 2nd, or I guess June 30th, when we published that roundtable, I have it as Ohio State 21, Texas 19. But that could easily change in 50-something days.
Yeah, I know. I think it's going to be a great early season barometer for both, squads. Texas will be putting its 11-game winning streak in true road games on the line against the defending national champs, like they did at the, week 2 of last year when they went up to Michigan to face the defending national champs. All right, take it or leave it. Number 3, Eric. Jim Schlossnagle's transfer portal haul has improved Texas baseball. Take it or leave it. The transfer portal was open from June 2nd to July 1st. It is now July 2nd. Now, that doesn't mean Texas can't sign more players out of the portal. You just had until July 1st to get into the portal. Eric, what say you, my friend?
Chip, if I could take a push, I would, only because I feel like it's inconclusive. And I'm not saying he hasn't added stud players, right? Some of the names talked about, the catcher from Notre Dame, his name's escaping me right now. So was up for
Carson Tinney
up for the Buster Posey Award, right?
Yeah.
Top catcher in the nation. But this is why if I have to take one, I'm going to say take it. Jim Schlossnagle Chip has been very particular, very specific to say about the type of players he likes. Remember that line? I like big, strong guys. Unless you're super fast, I don't like little guys. Not saying the players who left the program were little guys, but I think we saw, Chip, in my mind, this lineup was a byproduct. And I want to give Jim Schlossnagle credit because I always pick on football coaches for this. Deciding, all right, the talent that's here on the roster, it ain't for me. I need to get my guys, and you don't try to develop the actual guys we have on the roster. Jim Schlossnagle, inherited a roster and worked with it. Yes, he brought in some guys of his own. I guess after a year, he saw, hey, I want to move in a different direction. So I want to give Jim credit for that. And I'm going to say take it because at least he's getting his guys. But, I thought Tommy Farmer, Will Gasparino, guys could blossom into something. Maybe not year one, but I think especially with it, you look at the prospect of an entirely revamped outfield, probably thinking you're going to get better production there. And last but not least, Chip, another reason why I would be inclined to take this, the move of, from Western Kentucky. I'm forgetting the kid's name, right? Cal Higgins. Cal Higgins. Not saying he's going to be the closer. Could be just a Ruger Riojas type of, stopper until Ruger, of course, went to the rotation. Anything that gets, and I'm going to line up Chip for his guy right here with this one. Anything that gets Dylan Volantis in the starting rotation, that's a win for Texas baseball, Chips. I will take it.
Yeah, I'm going to take it as well. I mean, we know based on what Jim Schlossnagle was shopping for in the transfer portal that it's looking like Rylan Galvan, who with Carson Tinney and the Bodine kid from Coastal Carolina were the three finalists for the Buster Posey Award. We know you don't get Carson Tinney unless Rylan Galvan is going to use his leverage and turn pro in the MLB. The MLB draft is July 13th and 14th. It looks like Rylan Galvan, Max Ballou, and Jalen Flores will use their leverage as juniors coming out to turn pro. So what does Schlossnagle do? He goes and he lands Carson Tinney. He lands Timo Becerra, the shortstop from Stanford who batted .330 last year. And then, brings in a few outfielders, including Aiden Robbins, who batted .422 last year at Seton Hall. I mean, .422, like that's an amazing number in college baseball. Jack Maroknek batted .372 with 18 homers at Butler. Now, you got to see it at the next level because Easton Winfield had a good year at ULM, came to Texas. It didn't work out, and he's back in the portal. So we got to see it, but Jim Schlossnagle has been a really good selector of talent. And don't forget, they have a top 3 recruiting class coming in. They're probably going to lose their top 2 prospects in that class to the MLB draft. Cason Cunningham, the shortstop, and Gavin Fine, the third baseman. Those are both top 10 prospects coming out of high school. But there's plenty of talent that Texas is hoping will not sign with pro clubs who could really help, including right-handed pitcher, 6'8", 252 pounds, Sam Cozart, right-handed pitcher from High Point, North Carolina. We know Schloss likes the big intimidator dudes. How about 6'8", 252, Eric? So, yeah, I think I'm going to take this. And I know Schloss wants to get these high school guys going so that he's not having to go to the portal as much. But because Texas did have 18 players leave in the portal, but most of them were told, not sure what we see for you here in the future. So, all right. Hey, there we are. Everybody, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Flagship Podcast. Make sure you get over to horns247.com and become an annual member so that you get all the VIP access to all the team sites on the preeminent 24/7 sports network. So for Eric Henry, I am Chip Brown. Until next time, we'll see you over at horns247.com. Stay safe and keep the faith.